Hey everyone, it's Kenji, and I'm making a Spanish tortilla. It's like a big potato omelet, you know? So to make this, I start by sauteing sliced and peeled Yukon Gold potatoes in plenty of olive oil, like a half cup of olive oil for 2 pounds of potatoes, over medium heat until they're soft. And then I add some onions and saute those together until they're just lightly browned. Then I'm going to break about 8 eggs. You can do more or less, but about 8 eggs into a bowl. And I'm going to season them with some salt and black pepper, and then I beat them up, not super well, but moderately well. I like to have a little bit of sort of non-homogeneity in my eggs for this type of dish. So I like to use some chopsticks when I'm doing this, just beat them up. Meanwhile, as my potatoes continue to cook, I like to get them to this stage where they're just lightly browned on some of the edges, but not super crispy or anything like that. And then I'm going to dump them hot into the eggs. So dumping them hot into the eggs gets the eggs starting to cook a little bit so that this thing finishes up real quick on the stovetop, you'll see. So I'm going to take some more olive oil, get it into that pan again. I'm using cast iron. You know, you can use nonstick. It makes it much easier. But if you have a good cast iron pan like this, you can use cast iron. Olive oil, by the way, is an essential part of the flavor of this dish. It's not just there to help things from sticking. So you want to use a good amount of olive oil. There's probably like 3/4 of a cup of olive oil total in this omelet here. So I dump in the eggs, use my chopsticks or a spatula to just pull in some of the edges and redistribute that just so you don't have like that really sort of smooth surface. I like having a kind of rough surface. And then I just let it sit for a few moments to brown that outside. This is now over pretty high heat, so just shy of high, medium high, I would say, on the high end of medium high. Give it a few spins. And then here comes the fun part. Once the bottom has set up and is nicely browned, you flip it over. You can do this with a plate, but I find it's much easier to do it with this wooden wok lid that I have. It works with a regular pan lid too, or a cutting board. Something flat works really well, but you flip it over and then slide it back out. And then what I do is I tuck in the edges a little bit, but then really to get that nice shape, the nice rounded edges of the shape, I like to flip it back and forth over and over and over. And I'll show you how I do that in a second. And I'm just going to kind of pass it back and forth over and over and over. And each time you kind of give it a little jiggle to make sure those edges are tucked in. And this way you get a really nice round edged disc shape that, I don't know, it just looks pretty. I'm patting it with my fingers. So I could tell you that, I like this done a little bit more well done and I like it fully cooked. To be honest, I just kind of overcooked it slightly. Typically, you would cook this, or I would try to cook it so that it's still a bit runny in the center, so the eggs are still quite a bit soft in the center. But here they are just barely set all the way through. That's okay though, it still tastes great. To dip here, you can make a handmade, alioli, something with, eggs and olive oil and garlic, but I like to make a sort of cheaty one when I'm just in the mood to do things quick. I take mayonnaise, mince clove of garlic, microplane of clove of garlic into it, add some extra virgin olive oil, some really good extra virgin olive oil, plenty of black pepper, and then give that a stir. And this tastes a whole lot better than just straight mayonnaise out of the jar. It almost tastes homemade when you do it this way, especially if you use a really nice olive oil to give it lots of flavor. All right, now you can cut it into wedges. I like to cut it into squares because I find them a little bit more snackable that way, and I like to pack these into my kids' lunch boxes or let people graze at the kitchen table. So I cut it into these little cubes. You just dip it into the olive oil mayo, garlic olive oil mayo, and eat it, and that's it. They're good hot, they're good at room temperature, they're good cold. Just make one and just let it sit there all day and eat it throughout the day, or pack it into your kids' lunch the next day. I love them. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, later.